Welcome to the 2023 Hungarian Grand Prix pre-race chat. This track itself is 4.3k, so we're going to be seeing 70 laps of the Hungaroring, and this track itself isn't a massively high-speed track, so we're going to be only having also the one DRS zone. Well, it sort of goes through turn 14 through to turn 2, and because it's not a massively fast-flowing track, it's going to definitely have some advantages to some teams and some disadvantages to some other teams. So in last year's race in 2022, we had Max being number one on the podium with Lewis and George Russell coming second and third, respectively. Don't get taken away by the Mercedes gear. I do like the team, however, I'm more into the drivers themselves rather than following an individual team in particular. Last year, Ferrari did all right as well. They were coming in 4th and 6th with Sainz, then Leclerc. So it's going to be interesting to see how Ferrari go this week. I'm hoping that they're going to have a bit of a bounce back. They've had a little bit of not the greatest form over the first half of the season. So hopefully they can start to claw their way back up the field. Max had a great drive. He started in P10 in 2022 and made it to obviously winning the Grand Prix. We had George taking pole in the qualifying, so hopefully we can have Mercedes doing well again this week. But I've heard this track is probably going to be suiting Aston Martin, and Alonso has also been saying throughout the year that he's looking forward to this race in particular. So I'm expecting big things hopefully from Aston Martin this week. So this weekend's going to be one of our regular race weekends with practice 1 and 2 commencing on Friday, with practice 3 and qualifying on Saturday, with then rounding out the race on Sunday. So this is going to be pretty interesting to see how we go in practices, because there's going to be a few teams that are bringing upgrades this weekend. I've heard Red Bull are going to be bringing some pretty obvious looking upgrades to their car. They've even claimed that they're going to be getting 2/10. So this is going to be insane to see what Red Bull bring this weekend. Hopefully some of the other teams are able to bring some upgrades and take the fight to them. Obviously, when we were racing at Silverstone, McLaren did an amazing job there. Unlucky for Oscar, massive Oscar Piastri fan, and hopefully McLaren aren't too far off the pace this weekend. Now, obviously, we've just had some massive news with AlphaTauri having Daniel Ricciardo back on the grid. Unfortunately for Nick de Vries, got a bit of drew the short straw in the end. Well, unfortunately, he didn't have the greatest form for the first half, so they're trialling Daniel against Yuki. So this is going to be really interesting. Leave in the comments down below of what you're thinking, how those two are going to go. Do you think Daniel's going to have the edge or Yuki? I'm thinking, just because Daniel hasn't really been driving the AlphaTauri and instead has been driving a bit of the Red Bull as of late with some testing, I'm thinking it's definitely gonna be close. I'm almost saying that I'm thinking Yuki might just have the edge over Daniel at the moment, but being an Aussie as well, I'm rooting hard for Daniel. I hope he does extremely well, and I hope to see him back in that Red Bull fighting at the front. So who do I see doing well this weekend? Well, it's very hard to go against the number one man, Max Verstappen. So I'm thinking, sounds bad, but I'm thinking he's probably going to take out P1. He's just too good in all low speeds, high speeds, and like cornering. The car is so dominant in every single situation. He's good in the wet if it starts to rain a little bit. So I'm keen to see how he does or how much he dominates based on these upgrades coming to his car. P2, I've got a feeling Alonso had an amazing start to the season, so I'm thinking Alonso might have a pretty strong weekend here. Thinking he might be able to snag back on the podium and hopefully get a P2. That would be very exciting. Hopefully he can even challenge for the P1, but that might be asking a bit too much based on the last few races haven't been too great for Aston Martin. And for P3, I think I'm going to have to go with Mercedes. However, I'm actually going to go with George Russell. I think he's been flying a bit under the radar lately for the first half of this season. He had an amazing season last year, did really well with Mercedes, and I'm thinking he might be able to pull out a bit of a decent performance this weekend. So I'm looking forward to his drive. Who do I see doing fairly well this week? Well, it's a bit hard to say. I'm hoping that Alex can continue his good form there in the Williams. So I'm hoping that he might be able to get close to getting a point. We'll have to see how he goes in the Williams. They're doing quite well, starting to work their way up the field a little bit. So best of luck to them. I'm also going to say I want Oscar to do well. Another Australian driver. He was very unlucky at Silverstone, and I think he's driving absolutely amazing at the moment. So I'm thinking he might actually have the one up on Lando this weekend. I just got that feeling, you know. So Oscar's been driving really well, and Lando's had the edge over him just for the first half of the season. I think it's time that Oscar puts in a pretty decent performance. So look out for him, I reckon. Who do I think's not going to have a ripper weekend going here to the Hungarian Grand Prix? I'm thinking Alfa Romeo aren't. They're just not having a really good season this year. Valtteri, he's not putting in very good performances at the moment, as well as Joe. I really thought he showed some very good potential last year, and we're probably just not seeing it as much this year. Whether or not that's to do with the car or just some of his performance in himself, but it'll be interesting to see. I just don't think they're going to do very, very well this weekend, as well as Haas. Obviously, Hulkenberg has been putting in some ripper performances in qualifying, but that car just seems to be. Its tires just go so quickly. So I'm thinking they're probably going to be somewhere near the back end in this race, especially with it being 70 laps. It's not looking good. So leave down in the comments who you think is going to do well and who's not going to do well this week at the Hungarian Grand Prix. Is Sergio Perez going to be able to come back and take a fight up to Max this weekend? For his sake, I hope he does, because he's been looking not too great over the last few weeks. Hopefully he'll be able to make it to Q3, and I'll see you in the next episode in the Hungarian post-race chat. Thanks for watching.